starting to feel comfortable in front of the camera. So I spoke to a number of Indigenous Peoples representatives and organizations. So let's go.
Keep breathing life with Ycha. Hold on to your Aina for the next generation. Continue your national aspirations with Menamuria. Keep playing the pife in Brazil. Keep throat singing in Russia. And keep the round dance going, my North American family. This is a time where we widen the circle of opportunity and deepen the meaning of our rights.
We have an endangered species that usually you have to approach very slowly.
Because the declaration is more than the minimum standard. It is a map in the stars where we can realize the dreams of our ancestors.
This is the Go Maluku podcast.
What's up, everyone? This is episode 4 of the Go Maluku Live. What is a web show? Something that I still haven't figured out. Also, like, I just realized that this whole intro, like the 5-minute thing, is way too long. But it gives people a little bit of time to, start getting comfortable watching, like settle in, grab popcorn, grab bag of chips and everything else. So I'm trying to make it shorter, or definitely shorter, but definitely not longer. Welcome again, episode 4, Go Maluku Live. This time I have my guest today from the Russian side of the indigenous world, Marina Ycha from the Ulchi people. Met and help me a little bit, Marina. Did we meet at the Extra Mechanism while you were a fellow? Before that, definitely talked more online, obviously. But very here's where I'm coming from, is that for me there's a lot of indigenous peoples in Russia that the rest of the indigenous world do not know about. That is where my fascination comes from. Having as much as Indigenous peoples from around the world, of course, on the show, but definitely from Russia, because there's not a lot of knowledge about that. Weird intro into the entire thing, but definitely so monumentally pumped for having you on the show. How are you doing?
Oh, thank you, Ghazali. I'm so glad that you invited me to the show. Yeah, and it is a great honor for me to take part in your show. And this is one of the challenges, I think, of the biggest challenges I have to overcome to take part in live show. Yeah.
Did you ever go live or video, audio, something along those lines? Radio, maybe?
No, it's actually my first time.
Oh, wow.
Take part in live show. Yeah, it's my debut. And earlier, I gave a lot of interviews to the newspapers, to the local and to the regional newspapers. But so you see, taking part in the live show is a great challenge for me.
Oh, tell me about it. I only started feeling comfortable in front of a camera, I think a year and a half ago, maybe.
Okay, it's okay.
Before that, I always told myself that I have a face for radio, so I'm definitely not very excited at first to be in front of a camera, but definitely. So I'm still learning, and hopefully that I won't scare you off for doing this more often, because you have a brilliant mind. You do a lot of work that I definitely want to get into. For the people that do not know you, maybe spend the first 2-3 minutes, who you are, where you're from, who you were growing up as a kid, and maybe who your parents are.
Okay, so my name is Marina Ycha. I'm from Russia, and I belong to the Ulchi people. These people live. The Ulchi people live in on the bank of the Amur River. It's one of the biggest rivers, and so they are numbered just about 2,500 people all around the world, and mostly living here in the Ulchi district. And so my childhood was in a native village. My mother is a native language teacher, so my dad is a hunter and fisherman. So that was my childhood, and moreover, I danced and sang traditional songs and dance in a folk group.
Mm-hmm.
So that's
Did you do
That was
your
my childhood.
entire childhood? When I think it was a couple of days ago that I posted some videos. Like I shared a video of I saw a dance from the Russian side, like from I don't know. I don't think it's from the Ulchi people, but some other indigenous peoples, maybe Kamchatka, maybe of a dance. Like, is dance important for indigenous peoples in Russia? And if so, like, how long have you been dancing?
So actually, dance is very important for indigenous people. So it's culture. So we live
Right.
in
Yeah.
this, and yeah, like language, like self-expression. So
And is did you do that for because you said you were in a dance? Was it like in a group or by yourself? And like as a child, did you until what age did you or are you still dancing? By the way.
so I was dancing until I just graduated from the school. Yeah, it was about 17 years old.
Mm-hmm. And then let me talk a little bit about like you growing up and your parents. Obviously, there's a long line of historically within your family having traditional occupations as an indigenous occupations. How was that like and like growing up with parents and grandparents that having these traditional occupations?
So it was so maybe I don't know how to express it, but it is still a part of my life. It is so natural to live in these conditions and to respect the roots and to continue what they are doing, what they were doing at that time. And so I still love embroidery as my grandma did. Yeah.
So like, I'm sorry, you fell off of for a couple seconds. So embroidery, that is something that your grandmother did, and that you still do as well.
Yes, yes, I do.
Oh, awesome! And so just trying to yeah, imagine a little bit like the way of life of the Ulchi people. Like, so what do the Ulchi people? How would you describe like a day in community? You know, what are people doing, and what are you doing in the community?
Ulchi people were mostly fishermen and hunters, and women did embroidery, and so
Right.
it is still actual for indigenous people in our district and Ulchi people. I mean, um,
And are there paint me a picture like whereabouts is the Ulchi people? Is it in the Russian side? I assume it's all the way in the eastern side of what we now call Russia.
I'm sorry.
I'm
Can
sorry.
you?
So where exactly? So people have an idea like where exactly the yeah where the Ulchi district is, where the Ulchi people live. I assume it is on the eastern side.
Yes, of course. So the Russia is too big, and we live on the bank of the Amur River in the close to China border, to Korea border, in that part of Russia. Yeah.
And it says, do you have yeah like as a people, do you have like relationships or yeah no I wouldn't call them relationships, but like do you interact a lot with the Chinese people across the border or the Korean people on the border? And because I'm trying to yeah I'm fascinated by that you're close to three very distinct peoples.
Yes, in the past, Ulchi interacted a lot with Chinese people and Japanese people. with Japan and China and maybe Korea. So we have our in native language, we have our own definitions to these countries, and now we have some connections with scientific people, with linguists from Japan, from China, and some culture interactions.
Right.
Yeah.
And so into linguistics, is that something to what are they researching? The Ulchi Peoples language, or is it yeah, like it's are they doing that, or are there a lot of researchers that are coming to your community?
Yes, we have some researchers who work with Ulchan language and Ainu people language, and because Ulche and Ainu are very close with their culture and language, and they have a lot of common things.
Mm-hmm.
So
Really,
this is the subject of.
Interesting. And so there's a direct connection between between the Ainu people and the Ulchi people. That's interesting. Because
Yeah.
I think with it in Geneva, or no, yeah, mostly in Geneva, met some Ainu representatives, but that was like years ago. They have not, like, recently have participated in UN meetings, unfortunately. But it was also always interesting to know that there's Indigenous peoples living in Japan. But now knowing that they have close ties with the Ulchi people, that's fascinating to me. Marina, like how like so you grew up with dancing, and when did like Indigenous rights come into your life? What experience made you think about, like, oh hey, our rights are important?
Oh, I'm sorry.
No,
You
that's okay.
just dropped.
So my question is because we know each other from the UN work. You were fellow, right, with the Office of the High Commissioner on Human Rights. Obviously, that you did not jump into it. It was not like a spirit of the moment. So my question is, like, what experience or what moment in time or life made you decide, like, oh hey, Indigenous rights is important for us?
Yes, as you mentioned, I've been an Indigenous fellow in last year. I was in Geneva, and before that, I was working for Indigenous Peoples' rights for almost 10 years, and I don't think there was something actually. There is always a lot of new and a lot of interesting in Indigenous community, especially in terms of social adaptation and progress that in the country in the time, and integrating into these modern conditions is very important and very interesting, when Indigenous peoples trying to adopt new conditions to their traditional way of life. So maybe something like that. Yeah.
Right. So did you? I saw there's also a video going around of you and when you were at the Food and Agriculture Organization. I think I assume that has to do a lot with your fisheries being very important to your community.
Yes, it's very vital. Yeah, it is very vital because
how did the FAO help for you? That, oh, like, sorry, go ahead with what you were trying to say.
So the fishery is very important for our region in common, and for indigenous people living in our region, because first of all, the fish is the most the basis of traditional nutrition. So
Right. And so, so what? I think that that video was in last year at the Food and Agriculture Organization. What was the purpose of that meeting?
so and when FAO invited me, so it was a great opportunity for us to speak about the problems in traditional fishery itself, and as we face a lot of challenges right now in traditional fishery and the industrial fishery itself. And so this was one of the keystones, maybe, of the seminar held by FAO. Mm.
And what were the problems in terms of the traditional fisheries? What problems are you facing?
I'm sorry?
So what are the, because you went to the FAO, because
Mhm.
there were traditional fisheries are you experiencing problems. So my question is like, what can you please explain those problems?
So the problem is that traditional fishery is free of fees and charges, and that's why it is very hard to integrate to the national economics, but especially when in industrial companies working in the region, they pay too much money to budget of the country, to budget of the region, and so maybe it is some kind of lobby for industrial companies, fisher companies, uh, and we can see no place of our traditional fishery in economics, but it is not a part of economics, but it is a part of traditional culture. Uh, so maybe that's it.
And so did you go to the before you went to the fellowship for the Office of High Commissioner on Human Rights? Did you go to the UN, like to the expert mechanism, for example, before that, or was the Office of High Commissioner fellowship was that the first time that you went to Geneva?
So last year it was my first experience working in the UN system, actually, but about 9 years ago, I met some UN officers in Khabarovsk, in the administrative center of our region, and that was a conference about the 19th anniversary of cooperation of Russia and the UN system in Indigenous Peoples issues.
Mm-hmm.
And that time so actually at that time I met a lot of people and working with the UN system, and they invited me, but that time I was maybe I thought that I had not too much experience to work there, and so that's why I just went to the UN system right last year.
Last year, right? Okay. And then, so in between, so what did you do? Like right now, you work for the local government. So did you start working for the local government back then already, or what did you do in between?
Actually, my experience started from a bulletin. I was a correspondent in the local bulletin on Indigenous
Oh wow.
Peoples issues. Yes, and actually, at that time, I went to the UN conference in Khabarovsk, where I met a lot of people and
Mm-hmm.
got some acquaintances. And then I entered. Then I went to the Russian Association of Indigenous Peoples of the North. I went to Moscow, and I got master's degree at that time, and worked for Ripon for about 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Wow, and like master's degree, working for Ripon, and yeah, um, how how do you look at like your experiences working for Ripon and your master's degree in terms of applying that for yeah helping your people's traditional way of life?
So when I entered the High School of Economics, I it was my so actually I got master's degree with work on indigenous peoples' languages and concerning Ulchan language. And so work in Ripon was very helpful in getting my master's degree.
Mm-hmm.
And so actually it was very helpful for the whole experience I have right now. Yes, I just got acquainted with a lot of regions, almost all regions where indigenous peoples of Russia live. It is about 46 indigenous people, and the whole Arctic region of Russia. And yeah.
Right, and so people know actually that. Can you describe what Ripon kind of an organization is? Because not a lot of people know. They heard about it. I heard about it, but like I don't exactly know what kind of organization that is. Is it an organization? Is it part of the yeah? Is it a foundation or what is it exactly?
So actually, it is an association of indigenous peoples, but it has a lot. It has a great experience in working on indigenous peoples' rights. So um, just 30 years. I just
Hmm.
came back from Moscow, and there it was. Um, 30th anniversary, and they held an exhibition and some kind of conference concerning
Mm-hmm.
30th anniversary. Yeah,
Right. And
and
so you were with Ripon for a while. Did you also sorry, forgive my ignorance. So you lived in Moscow for a while. How does like what are the pros and cons of living in Moscow versus living in the community?
so living in community is very comfortable and very quiet living. While in Moscow, you live like in a Babylon, maybe. I think so. So too many cultures, too many people, and living in a community is very comfortable, and you're just focusing on the people's culture and people's rights.
And
You are very close to the people living in the community.
are there actually do indigenous peoples from Russia also live in Moscow?
I'm sorry,
Like
living.
yeah, like were you able to connect with indigenous peoples that are also living in Moscow?
Mm, actually, yes.
So the
Uh,
okay,
so
were there Indigenous peoples living in Moscow? That's I'm interested in.
Not too much. Most indigenous people live in the communities, but some representatives live in Moscow, and they're just few of them, and most of them are working. Uh, so the Ripon office is indigenous people representatives,
Mm-hmm.
uh, but now we see just the um, situation when indigenous youth coming to big cities and for looking for a good job, well-paid job, for some benefits of modern society. Uh, so maybe just
Is that happening in your community in the with the Ulchi people? Sorry, Ulchi people.
yeah, yes, mostly indigenous youth going to uh, mm, cities to get their education, and then they stay in the city uh, to get a good job because there is unfortunately um, very hard. It is too hard to find a well-paid job in the community.
Right.
Yeah.
And do they also come back? Like you see sometimes, for example, in the Pacific, you see like people, a lot of people go to the city to make a living, and yeah, most of them stay, but also a few of them go back and contribute to the community.
Oh, it is a very good question because so I went back to my community because I found that I can't live without my traditional nutrition, without my traditional culture, and I would like my children to continue uh, uh, the traditions of the Ulchi people, and but unfortunately, not that much people going back to their homelands.
Is that if from your perspective, in your view, is that a good thing or a bad thing for actually for the community of being able to grow as a peoples?
So actually, it is a bad. I don't think it's too bad, but in terms of if a person wants to get a good education and to get a good job and to get so good conditions to live, it is natural that they are going to a big city to look for something uh, more comfortable, maybe. Uh, but
Yeah.
uh, the yes, actually, the situation is that community is very low numbered, and it still getting smaller and smaller in
Right.
population.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you told me that you now work for the local government. Can you explain a little bit what you do and what the role is and how that affects your indigenous peoples?
Yeah, so I'm a specialist on interethnic issues and NGO issues, and mostly it concerns my work concerns indigenous people's rights, as Ulchi district is a native district, and so my task is to work with traditional culture, traditional education, native languages, and uh, traditional occupations as fishery and hunting.
And
So
yeah, and how did you get that job? Like, did they come to you like, hey, Marina, you're so amazing. We would like you to have that job, or did you have to apply?
um, it was almost like that, but
Oh,
um, yeah, I just went um, uh, to the local government and sent their my CV, and then they just invited me to work.
right. And what made you apply for that role for that job?
Uh, I'm, I'm sorry, what was?
So what made you apply for that job? Like what did you see that you could do with that being a specialist?
So at that time when I applied for this title, um, I thought about what how can I be useful for the community, and it was a good opportunity for me to um, work for the Ulchi people uh, for the people I belong to,
Mm-hmm.
and um, it was interesting. Just like it was a good experience to work for um, the people for their rights.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. And so, um, so that job that you have right now, um, do you think that it can contribute to your vision of the future for the Uchi people?
Oh, I'd love to.
Yeah, does it give you yeah, space and opportunity to do that?
Yes. So I have. When I went to this job, I had a lot of ideas to uh, how to do um, the community more prosperous, more so conditions more um, comfortable maybe for the people. And now I see just a few moments that indigenous youth is interested in learning language as in 2012
Mm-hmm.
I just uh, uh, brought a group of enthusiasts to make a native language day in the community, and since that time indigenous children are more interested in learning native language, and so maybe this is the inspire of uh, for me to work further in
Mm-hmm.
this direction.
And when is that day, the Indigenous Language Day that you've done? Is that every year, or is it just one day?
Yes,
Um,
yes, it's every year since 2012. It is every year event.
right.
Yes, and there were
And
just five
what day
schools.
is what day is it, by the way, so I can put it in my agenda?
So actually, International uh, uh, Native Language Day is 21st of February, and
Mm-hmm.
we are announcing a week of Native Languages Day um, in these dates, closely in these dates.
So
And
around
then we have
February 21st.
21st of February.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wow. Um, Marina, I have some questions for you actually that came in by the text and everything. You already seen them like briefly. If you're okay with it, there's someone asked like, what is the biggest challenge that you've had to overcome?
Oh, as I have already said that one of the biggest challenge uh, for now was to take part in your show, and I thought a lot before. Yes, I thought a lot before. What was the biggest challenge ever? I think that I have no big challenges. It's just my duty. And one of the biggest challenges was to choose the place and to choose the time to born.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and to choose the destiny I was born with. Yeah, so that's it.
And then let's talk a little bit about challenges. For example, for when you went for the very first time to Moscow to having to live there, how yeah were you able to like adapt quickly, or did you have to yeah sorry sorry yeah did you have to adapt? Were you able to adapt quickly, or was it a little bit challenging?
Yes, it was not that challenging, and I adapted very quickly. I had no time to adapt at all. Yes, so I had to live in this situation and to uh, just to work and to live further. Yeah.
Right. So the situation um, made you adapt very quickly and like, just go with it because you had a lot of things to do. 'Cause I can imagine that a lot of other people they when they go into a new situation that they need 1 or 2 months to adapt to the lifestyle from community to a big city. Um, so that is yeah I don't know like it's always interesting to learn like how people overcome challenges as in how they yeah go from one situation that they're used to into a new situation that they're not used to, um, and like how they yeah deal with with that situation. um, how about the fellowship program, like what did you uh, probably the first time you ever went to Geneva, learned the work for the UN. How did that experience? Yeah, was it an event? How kind of what kind of an adventure was that for you?
So it was a challenge too, but like moving to Moscow, it was a challenge, a big challenge. But I think I was good in overcoming it. And when especially about Indigenous fellowship, it was a very good experience to work for the UN system. And I was co-chair of Indigenous Caucus there before the expert mechanism, and
Mm-hmm.
it was also a good challenge, a big challenge for me because. I was the only one from the region, and the only one speaker, Russian speaker, between three co-chairs. So first time I thought to give up, but then uh, I just
Really?
yes, but then I just thought that I have to make a principal decision to take part in the Indigenous Caucus, and if I have such a good opportunity to be a co-chair, so I should be.
Hmm. Um, being a co-chair of the Indigenous Caucus, so there was 2 days, right? The 2 day preparatory meeting, or 1 day, 2 days, 2 days. Yeah, 2 days.
Today.
Um, so like, how did you experience that? Having to lead a room very hot. I remember it's always very warm down there in the basement with a lot of these people, um, and actually basically looking at you for guidance. As in you're being a co-chair and all these people are actually very experienced, but looking at you like how did that make you feel?
So I felt excited, but it was very hard to interrupt people sometimes because there were a lot of emotions because we have a lot of situations in um, different districts, and it is very hard to come to something common in just these 2 days, and having so much problems in indigenous people sphere. And so those problems in Latin America are different from problems in Russia. Maybe they're not principally different. They have a lot of common, but we have to find something um, very common to all the indigenous peoples of the world, and it is too hard because people, and most of them are more experienced in this sphere than me, and it is very hard to lead them to find to some common issue.
Right. And because you said you had three co-chairs, so how so the three of you had to lead the meeting. How did you organize that with the three of you, make it so that you did not compete or talked against each other, but more as a facilitating the meeting? How did that go? Did you make arrangements? Did you say like agreements, like you do this, you do that? Like, was there any kind of conversation like that between the three of you?
So actually, we were fortunate to be all of us, three of us, were indigenous fellows, and we had an experience to uh, interact with each other for 3 weeks before. Yeah, so maybe, and it was very operative work in some moments. We
Mm-hmm.
just it was just maybe a minute decisions to make something common.
Right. Yeah, you got did great as co-chairs. I remember the we had almost during the week of the MRIP, we had almost a week every day we had a caucus meeting as well. So you guys were very much on point. So yeah, congratulations and respect for what you guys the three of you did. Because not every this at least in my experience, not every person thinks as a co-chair, as a facilitator. A lot of some people when they go into into that chair as a co-chair, they think it as a political position, as in like, this is what I want to do, and this is what I want you to do. And at least from my experience, I'm like, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but from my experience, like the way that I observed you guys sitting up front, it was more about like, how can we help you?
Yes, so this is one of the key issues to help to people um, to make one common decision that will be much stronger than individual one um, on the expert mechanism, or maybe just any other meeting.
Mm-hmm.
And it is too hard to uh, be strict in the decisions. So I said, I just want you to do something. Yes, and but we should listen to everybody to make this decision common one.
Right.
Yeah.
Is it so I think that I've not seen many Russian speaking co-chairs. Uh, Anything that maybe the caucus or maybe people that would like to follow your footsteps. Any advice for them first time going to the United Nations or to the into the fellowship? What is something that you can tell them to prepare them best for such a journey?
So I would tell that first learn English and Spanish languages first of all. Because
Spanish even, okay.
Spanish language is mostly presented in the UN system, as I learned from my experience, and French is too good, but Latin America is very active one, and when interacting with other indigenous peoples, especially with those from other countries, it is very useful to some decisions, to some maybe some to some decisions that you would like to tell from the Global Tribune. And the second one thing is to listen to what people are saying, and it is very important, I think, to listen and to be heard. But first of all, listening other people, making much more use when translating your own issue you would like to speak on.
Right. Marina, I have another question for you that came in, and that is maybe more relevant to your community, and I'd like to pick your brain on it. So what are some good questions to ask Indigenous people, without an S, oh boy, to learn from their culture and perspectives? So what if someone, researcher or academic interested in the Ulchi people, to learn more about your culture and perspectives, like what are in your view, the best questions to ask, or good questions to ask?
So I thought about this question, and I think that good question is about the self-identification. So when asking an indigenous person, how do you identify yourself? Do you identify yourself with an indigenous people you belong to? And do you respect? Are you respectful to your roots? Maybe that's it. So.
Right. Yeah. I think I 100% agree. Is that when I look at this question, I'm like, first of all, you have to come from when you go into a community, you have to come from a position of humility, not and like, oh, I'm a academic or a researcher and I'm going to save you from or bring modern times to the community. I think once you have that mindset, you're dead wrong. You need to come from a position of humility and respect, and so I don't have any questions actually that are good questions to ask. I think it's all about like your mindset and your intention. I think those are much more important than questions. You can have like very very specific good questions, but if that you and I prepare for that person, but if that person has intentions that are not are beneficial for indigenous peoples, then then I don't even want that person to learn our culture or our perspectives. So I 100% agree with you. Thank you so much for your answer, Marina. I think that is something that a lot of non-indigenous peoples can learn from. There's also like another. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
So I think that one of good question is also what will be in 10 or 15 or 12 or 20 years with your people you belong to. Yes, so maybe that's it. I just wanted to.
Oh yeah. well, that's also very, I think it's more about talking about future, right? I think, and um, funny. So one question that came in is, what do you think the future of the Ulchi people will be? So you already started talking about that a little bit, but please unpack it for us. What is your vision for the Ulchi people?
Yeah, actually, like every people, I think. So, like every person, I want to see the Ulchi people in the future prosperous. I mean that I'd love to see indigenous youth coming back with good education and having a good positions, job positions, and coming back to the community and just doing common to make the community uh, adopted to modern conditions. So maybe this is the way of doing the prosperity for indigenous community. It concerns not only the Ulchi people. It concerns the indigenous peoples at all.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
And
just
when you talk
interacting.
about, sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
So interacting with other indigenous people, and not only indigenous, but with the whole community in the country, and just yeah.
Yeah, no, appreciate you sharing your thoughts on that. And people that are watching and listening, apologize. There's a little bit of a lag between what I'm between on the connection, so that's why I'm not interrupting Marina, but it's like yeah, there's a little bit of a like couple of seconds delay. Um, I think Marina, you talked about like bringing like a little bit more modern things into the community. Um, how does that with when you talk about traditional fisheries? What do you see how we how you the Uchi people can preserve traditional fisheries whilst also in these times whilst also allowing a little bit more like you said modern things come in as well.
So actually, maybe there are some good examples in the fishery in common. When traditional is integrated into the industrial fishery, and maybe some examples of Canada, maybe something like that. And but until we have no common position in the fisheries, it is too hard to prove that traditional fishery is very ecological one.
Mm.
But I think this is a way to be integrated, to um, just to prove that traditional fishery is a part of economics. It is a part of ecology policy, ecological policy. Um, so, but still, we're just trying to prove it.
Right. For funny, I'm not saying because it's hilarious, but like it's that you mentioned that because like yesterday I was in a informal meeting with 200 delegates from 90 states from governments on biodiversity and fisheries and of the oceans. I don't know, like if you're somewhat interested in that. If so, like we need definitely need to talk offline about that because I would love to pick your brain more about that. And the question was, and it's a little bit related to what you're talking about is like when does traditional knowledge or knowledge of indigenous peoples when does that become relevant? When is and in terms of biodiversity, sustainability, and fisheries came up as well. So like when does when can we say that the traditional fisheries of indigenous peoples, when does that become sustainable? And which is funny because like it's almost like that we have to prove to them
Yeah.
that it is sustainable, whereas we've been doing
Yes.
it for thousands of years, and we have to prove to them that that is sustainable. So it's kind of like the world upside down, that we have to prove to them everything, whilst we were there much longer than they were. Yeah, so in these conversations, and I'm sure that you have these conversations as well, maybe in local government or elsewhere, where you have to like prove yourself the whole time, as a being indigenous, or your traditional occupations, your knowledge, proving to them that it is relevant. Right? It's such a, I don't know, like, have you ever had that experience, or a situation where you had to like having to prove yourself again every time?
Yes, unfortunately, it is very ironic situation about all this, that we should prove that we are indigenous, and our traditional occupation is very ecological and sustainable, as you said. Um, so there's a lot of issues to prove uh, that we are on the right position. We lived for 1,000 years and in these very conditions, and then I don't want to say this word, but some people occupied our territories actually, and just told that this model is a good one, not yours. And then we should prove, yes, actually it is common to all indigenous people, I think, in the world. um, Unfortunately, the situation is like that,
Yeah.
and we have to prove a lot. And all the life, uh, all our actions are, maybe most of all our actions are to prove that we are here and we are right now, and we want to live in our traditional way of life.
Right. Yeah. Like it's such a strange thing that like I said, like rolled upside down. Like we've been the ones that have been here for the longest, and now we have to make ourselves relevant in this time. Let's do one more question. I know like we don't have a lot of time left, but this, it could be interesting. Someone asked like, how would you deal with a boss who isn't as ambitious on indigenous rights as you? Do you have any experiences, local governments, Ripon maybe, or anywhere else that you have a vision, you want to pursue it, and someone else that's superior to you, like, Marina, don't go too fast, do this first. And so like how if such a situation was there, like how did you deal with it, or how would you deal with it if you haven't come across something like that?
So maybe I just thought, I think that many indigenous people, indigenous rights defenders, face this very question, and just do nothing but continue working. Yes, that's my task. And if I work for indigenous people and I work on indigenous rights, I will continue working anyway, no matter just is anyone
Yeah.
ambitious or not, very very much ambitious, but still it is my work, and I will just continue working on these issues. So that's it. Not
Yeah.
making it a conflict, just
So like I think when I, if I had to come up with a situation like that, it is almost like you said, you don't go into confrontation. like he or she is your superior, is your boss. But like I don't know, for me at least, I would always try to find a way actually to make them see like the way that I my ambition, that it's not as difficult, that it's not as challenging as they see it, and mostly the way that I would do it is like showing them, but like all right, let me just do the work, like you said, just keep on moving on, and then let your actions or results speak for themselves. Of like, hey guys, this is doable. You can do it. Like, and did in that situation that your boss or any boss like turn around like, oh yeah, Marina, you're absolutely right, or because that's what you also get, that like they said, either they say like, oh, you are right, or they say like, no, better to do it my way anyway.
So there were different situations, and sometimes my boss told me that I was right, and I continued work. And there was a situation when my boss told me to do just like he said, and it was his principal position, and I agreed. So actually, all the situation can take place, and I'm fortunate to have a job concerning indigenous rights, and when I have some challenge or some concern, whether I'm right or wrong, I can do some consultation with indigenous people and with my boss, with senior people and the elders, maybe to get some feedback, and to think about, am I right in my decision to continue this work, or should I change it to the way that is mostly comfortable, and so maybe that will fit to the situation.
Right. I think that's very good advice actually. Thank you so much for sharing that. Marina, like, is there anything, like, final question for me would be, is there anything that we did not touch upon, or that's something that you feel like, oh, this is really what I still want to say?
So maybe, I don't know actually.
No, I just because I always want to be like any conversation to be of value, so not just for people that are watching or listening, but also like for like yourself. So I can imagine, because I've been in those conversations, whereas was on your end, that they asked me all these questions, and they and then it was the end, but I didn't get to say what I wanted to say, or I didn't give me the answer on or a question that they were supposed to ask me, so that I couldn't give the answer to that I want to give or like share with the world. So that's why my question is like, well, is there anything that I missed, that you're like, holy shit, Ghazali, why did you not ask me that question? Because I really want to talk about that. Or like, Ghazali, you're an idiot. Like I wanted to talk about this, like something along these lines. So that's why, like, final couple of minutes, just making sure that you are happy. I think that's what I'm trying to get at. So that's hence the question. Like, is there anything that we did not talk about that you really want to talk about?
Actually, I'm not sure because it was very. I'm very thankful for you to that you invited me to the show, and it was a very good experience to talk about the indigenous people, for the Ulchi people especially, and if actually if you have any questions, I'm ready to answer. Yeah.
Maybe one final question. Any people that you want to say hi to, shout outs, like hey, something along those lines,
Mm.
or want to thank people in the Ulchi community or anywhere else.
Oh, I thankful to yeah, I thankful to my family first of all. Yeah,
All right.
to my mom, to my
Mar-
dad. Yeah.
yeah, your family okay? COVID-19, of course, right now. Everyone's safe and healthy, and you
I hope so.
okay?
I hope
Okay.
so. So I just came back from Moscow and I'm on quarantine right now. Yes, unfortunately, we have uh, some concerns about the pandemic, about
Mm-hmm.
the second wave of the COVID,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
some restrictions come back. But I hope
Yes.
still that all are safe.
Yeah. Also, too, for yourself, you're in quarantine right now. Like you said, you just came back from Moscow. So thank you so much for coming back, being in quarantine, and being on the show as well. I don't think I could do that. Hats off to you, Marina. Thank you so much for being on the show, for like spending an hour with me and people that are watching, and definitely yeah, there's some yeah, we're still working on some projects, so definitely like looking forward to talking to you more, like where we usually talk, right? The chat and everything else. Yeah, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right.
So I hope to meet you again.
Yes, in person, hopefully at some point. Yeah, hopefully I put it on my list that at some point I can also visit the Ulchi people and really have this conversation, but then face to face and have a yeah, much more fun conversation with tea or coffee, whatever
Yeah,
you prefer.
that
All
would be
right.
great.
That would be great, huh? Yeah, I'm really looking forward to the post after COVID-19 time. Anyway, thank you so much. I probably have to let you go now. Thank you so much for your time. All right,
Thank
bye.
you. Thank you. Bye bye.